As a core mission of LULAC, voter engagement in the Latino community is our duty. With the inspiration of Martin Luther King Jr. and Cesar Chavez, who once said, "I am convinced that the truest act of courage is to sacrifice ourselves for others in a totally nonviolent struggle for justice." Page 324 of United States Catholic Catechism for Adults. Martin Luther King Jr., who was assassinated for his nonviolent organizing for civil rights, inspires many to this day. In the steps of Martin Luther King Jr. and Cesar Chavez, we find these two men who have been friends for over 40 years. Domingo Garcia, who marched with Cesar Chavez, and Peter Johnson, who marched with Martin Luther King Jr. They provide support and guidance to carry on the dream of liberty and justice for all. Domingo, as the national president of LULAC, and Peter, the founder of the Center for Nonviolence, together pulled their networks together to lift up the efforts in Georgia. We quickly realized LULAC did not have a strong presence in Georgia. Thankfully, Reverend Peter Johnson has a strong network in Atlanta, and he was able to help us find connections. Research found Georgia was struggling with the same voter suppression tactics we were seeing in Texas. Domingo offered legal support in the case of the voter purge that was going on. As we dug further, we saw 287G programs operating in Gwinnett County. All over the U.S., Latino families have been terrorized with the policies coming from ICE and DHS. Latino voters in Georgia were ready to make a statement, and we were going to ensure that they had access to voting information. All of them were in immigration detention not because federal agents had stalked out their homes or caught them in a workplace raid, but because Gwinnett County Sheriff Butch Conway had sent them there. For more than a decade, Conway has deployed his deputies as de facto immigration agents and turned his jail into a depot for undocumented immigrants headed for deportation. In the last decade, Conway's agency has identified more than 21,000 people to hand over to ICE. Since 2017, Gwinnett, Georgia's second most populous county, has helped to detain more immigrants than any other county except 5 counties in the states along the U.S.-Mexico border. Honestly, Ciru said, my issue isn't with ICE, not my first issue. My issue first is with the cops up there. The police up there, they treat us like we're nothing, Camila told me. Up in Gwinnett, they hunt for immigrants. This is in reference to how local sheriffs are driving Trump's deportation agenda. We started collaborating remotely. This initiative was difficult because we could not take buses over there to canvass. Suddenly, everything we did had to be with social distancing. We turned our efforts to host a house party with Texas House District Representative Victoria Nave and Georgia House District Representative Brenda Lopez Romero. We have seen Latinas be the focus of Get Out the Vote in 2020, and as a result, we see record-breaking numbers in Latino voters. As of Monday, 79,782 Latinos had voted early in the runoffs, compared to 124,662 on the Monday before the presidential election, November 3rd. An associate professor of politics, Bernard Fraga, is from the Emory University, said a total of 174,508 Latinos in the state voted in the general election, which would mean about 50,000 voters went to the polls on election day in November, he said. Truly getting Latinas involved is making a change in voter turnout. It was clear that Latinos could not swing the election without allies. The long history of Peter and Domingo's friendship was coming into play. The stories of Edmund Pettus Bridge, which is named after a Confederate general and reputed Grand Dragon of the Alabama Ku Klux Klan, hold stories of Bloody Sunday, an attack on the black community by the KKK deeply embedded in the ranks of the U.S. police. In order to deter the black community from voting, they were met with violence from the police. Making a connection between the black and brown community is imperative. We share stories of the origin of Show Me Your Papers and the birthright citizenship afforded to us from the 14th Constitutional Amendment. We quickly see that our struggle is the same and we must work together against oppression.
And what I would say, David, is that the role and impact that each one of us can have and create cannot be measured. We must be united as we confront racism and bigotry and hate like never ever seen before, at least in some of our lifetimes, the younger ones at least. And we know that we have to stand up and confront white supremacy in our own backyard at a time where our very own identity is used as a weapon against us to target us indiscriminately. And even though, David, we walk through the valley of oppression, we will not be fearful because we know that the future holds a very bright future. We know that our community is growing and will only continue to grow. And although today we're 60 million strong, in just 30 years, we're going to be 130 million strong, and 1 in 3 Americans will be of Latino ancestry. And so, what I say today for our 18-year-olds who are turning 18 every 30 seconds, we are continuing to grow as the power voters that we are. We're continuing to turn out. We're continuing to influence. And for those parents who are not eligible to vote, for our DACA, for our dreamers, we stand with you. We hear you. We thank you because you remind us of why we're in this moment and why we absolutely will change the history of America as we turn to Georgia.
It was time for our on-the-ground volunteers to go to Georgia and network in person. Our team carefully selected vibrant and energetic community leaders. All 4 of the LULAC members who went to Georgia are leaders with influence and charisma. Carefully managed relationships with Brenda Lopez, Georgia State House Representative, and Jason Esteves, Atlanta business lawyer and chair of the Atlanta Public Schools Board of Education. We linked up with organizations such as Latino Community Fund Georgia to support ongoing grassroots efforts, all with the intention of building LULAC membership and branding. On January 3rd, Andres led our volunteer team to Vote Tripling training. Our team linked up with existing efforts to get out the vote in the targeted communities. We spoke about Gwinnett County from the beginning of this effort. As we met key organizers in Georgia, such as Maria del Rosario Palacios, we were able to link up with them and pass out PPE packets at the meatpacking plants. LULAC has litigation in other states due to the meatpacking plant workers being disproportionately affected by COVID-19. We wanted to be sure to show our face in these places and give support. Our team was doing an excellent job on the ground. Andres was able to meet up with bilingual journalist Rita Cibaja, who featured him in a conversation about the political makeup in the United States and the importance of the election in Georgia. Within 3 days of touching ground, Noticias Telemundo wanted to interview the team that was working for Get Out the Vote in Georgia. They featured Andres Rodriguez, National LULAC Vice President for Young Adults. Overall, Arriba Georgia was a successful mission. We worked on Latino voter empowerment. We saw record-breaking numbers in turnout for Latino voters. We reached the communities we wanted with voter education materials, and we opened up spaces for Latinas to speak and organize. We were able to work on building a national network. We created new relationships in Georgia with existing organizers. We have the contact information to expand our membership, and we have a plan for moving forward. In order to continue the work of Cesar Chavez and Martin Luther King Jr., Dallas and Atlanta must form a coalition. We must develop budgets and a plan of action for developing current leaders and for building membership. I would just like to take a moment to thank each and every person who worked on this project together, to thank LULAC for being there for over 90 years to ensure that Latinos have equal rights, and to each person who helped. Thank you.